Hey Dev Team, welcome back to Flutter with Drag. In this episode I want to create this, one of the sort of display board type things that you see in airports and the like, and I thought it would be fun to do. I'm going to do this in a not totally optimized sort of way, but in a way that hopefully will be fairly easy to understand and follow along, and will get us this end result. So let's go. Okay, so here I am in a brand new project. No packages installed. I'm just in the main, and let's get cracking. Okay, so we're going to get rid of the widget, my app, and create a stateless widget called my app. That's going to be a material app. In that, what do we need? Well, not a lot really. Let's just have a home, which is going to be my home for now. We'll almost certainly be refactoring that later. And I want to have a debug show checked banner set to false. My home is going to be a stateful widget, and that's going to have a scaffold that will have a body, center, child, text, hello. Okay, let's save all that up, do a refresh because we've changed stateful widgets to hard widgets, and there we have our app ready to go. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is build a tile. And the question is, what do we want a tile to look like? So let's replace this text with what I think the tile is going to look like, and that's going to be a container. And I think we're going to have to specify width, which I'm going to put as 60. And we're going to have a child in there, and the child is going to be the letter that we want the character to have, the tile to have. Okay, that's starting to look like something, but not quite right yet. So we need the size box. It's not a size box, that was the editor changing it because a size box is more efficient if it's like that. But we do need to put some extra things in. What we want, for example, is a color. And so we'll have colors dot blue, and take that const back out. I need to stop that. Okay, I think we need to format this tile a little bit. I think we're going to put in here a style of a text style, and we're going to want a color to be colors.white. I think we want the font weight to be font weight bold, and I think put that on multiple lines. I think we want to have a bigger size, so font size, let's try 60. Okay, that looks all right. And then within the container, we're going to align into the center. Right, so that's just expanded massively, but we'll deal with that in a moment. That's roughly what our tile is going to look like. Now, because we're going to be using some of this a lot of the time, I'm going to start right now extracting some of this information. So I'm going to have, for example, final style, which is going to be this style. So I'm just going to cut it out of here and paste it up here and just set it here so we can use it. That means that can't be a const. We're going to be battling consts all the way through, but we can ignore those. So if you think of a display board, it's actually two parts of the tile cut in half. So the top half of the letter is one and the bottom half is the other. So we're going to need to do that. So we're going to need to cut this up, this container here. So again, I'm going to create a variable which I'm going to call tile, and that is going to equal this container. So I'm going to cut it out of here, paste it in there like so, and set that as final tile, and we'll put that in there like so. So instead of just having the tile like this, we need to have part of the tile. We need to have the top half and the bottom half, and we've cut it up. So that essentially means we're going to be putting this into a column because we want one above the other. So let's wrap that tile into a column, and I'm going to set the main axis size to main axis size minimum here, and that gets us our tile back. But at the moment it's the full tile and we only want half of the tile. So how can we do that? Well, we can wrap that in a clip rectangle. So I'm going to wrap this with a widget, and the widget is going to be the clip rectangle, which by itself won't do anything. But if in here we put in a line, and we can put into the align a height factor of 0.5, and what that will do is split it in half. Well, not quite split it in half, it reduces the height to half, but we want the top half. So we can take the alignment and we can set it to the alignment dot top center, and there we have the top of our card. Okay, so again I'm going to take this out, this clip rectangle, I'm going to cut that out, and I'm going to put that into its own variable called top of the tile, and that's going to equal that. It needs to be a final for now. Top tile. Okay, and now if we put in another top tile, we've got two in a row, except we don't want two in a row, we want one of those to be the bottom tile. So let's copy the top tile and change it to bottom tile, and change it there, and instead of aligning to the top center, we align to the bottom center, and there we have our card back. Okay, now why did we do all that? Because it just looks like we've what we started with. Well, we can put in our column another thing here. We can put in a sized box with a height of 2, and there we have a split. Now it looks slightly odd here. When you look at it, it does look slightly odd, and that's because it is perfectly cut in half, and our brain is telling us that there's something a little bit skewiff in the middle. There's a few ways of handling that, but what I'm going to do is simply, where we've got our height factor, I'm just going to knock a little bit off it. So instead of 0.5, I'm going to make it 4.9 on both the top and the bottom. And that's going to cut just a little bit of the letter out at the top and the bottom. And I think that then looks nice. Okay, so that is essentially the tile made. Now we need to animate it. So let's come to the top of our state. And to animate something, we need an animation controller. So let's set this up. It's going to come in late, but we are going to set it up. Animation controller, which we will call controller. In fact, I'll put an underscore there because it is going to be private. That's fine. And we're also going to have an animation, which we will call animation. Those are going to need to be set up. So init state. So the controller is going to be animation controller, and we need a vsync, which will be this. But in order to use this as a vsync, we have to add single ticker provider state mixin, like so. We also want to set a duration for our animation, and so the duration is going to be a lot faster than this later, but for now I'm going to put seconds 1 so we can clearly see what's going on as we run our animation. So that's going to provide us, when the animation runs, of a value between 0 and 1 over the period of 1 second, so it's a percentage of the time passed. We need to convert that into a number that's better for us for our animation, and that's what the animation is going to be. So the animation is going to be between, it's going to begin at 0 and end at pi divided by 2. And we're going to animate that with the animation controller. Pi comes from Dart Math, so we just need to import the library Dart Math. Okay, and this is to do with the degree of angle that we're going to be rotating things. That's in radians. You need to see my other how to flip video to understand radians a little bit more. Okay, we're going to be good developers, and we're going to dispose of our controller when we have finished. So controller dot dispose, and that's that. Okay, now we also need a way to play the animation, but we'll come back to that. We'll do that now. The way I'm going to do that is in our scaffold. Just for now, I'm going to put in an app bar, and in the end we're going to have an actions, and I'm going to put an icon button in there, and the icon is going to be icon dot play arrow forward. Get that the right way around. Play arrow, and the on pressed is going to simply be, for now, our controller forward from 0. So we're always starting it from the beginning. Get rid of const, and that should work. That gives us a little play arrow that when we click it actually runs our animation, except we get an error because this hasn't yet gone through the resetting, so the init state's not there. So let's do a restart, and now when we hit play we shouldn't get any error message, but we're not going to see anything because we're not doing anything with the animation yet. Now, one of the things we do want to do with the animation is change the state so we can see what's happening. So at the end of our animation controller, we're going to add in here double dot add listener, and this will, something that happens whenever there's a change, we're going to just set state. That will redraw the widget for us as it animates. Okay, so now we need to do the animation. So how do we animate something? Let's just take the top tile for now, and we're going to wrap that with another widget, and the widget is going to be the transform widget. Now the transform widget needs a transform, and this is where the maths happens. We're going to take a matrix for identity and do some stuff with it. Okay, so if we take a matrix for identity, which is whatever we need to do when we're doing a transformation with 3D, we're going to rotate it around the animation value. So we're going to add into here a rotation around the X, and we need to put in an angle, and the angle is going to be the animation value like so. Now when we hit play, so let's restart everything. We get this error. Let's divide that by 1, and that will make sure we're using the right, it's converting it. Let's play, see what happens. Okay, well, it flips, but it's not flipping the right way. We want it to flip from the bottom. So again, we can do that in the transform by setting the alignment to alignment bottom center. Okay, and now when we play, we've got this card flipping. It's very difficult to tell which way it's flipping. It could be going backwards, or it could be coming forward. We can sort of fix that by adding in here this line, set entry 320.005. Now what the heck does that mean? Well, let's look what it does first of all. There we are. Now it looks like it's coming towards us. Okay, so set entry 3005 basically means this. We have a matrix that's doing the maths. Matrix for identity gives us this, of which lots of complex maths can happen behind the scene to do things. And each of these values represents a different part of the formula that can do different things. So for example, if I change this number here, this will scale an object on the X, this will scale on the Y, this will scale on the Z, and this will scale everything. Changing these numbers, and I'm not going into matrix 4x4 here, although I am thinking about doing a video on this to explain this in a bit more details. But essentially this one here gives us a perspective. So set entry has a row, a column, and a value. And the way it works is it takes the column and multiplies that by 4, and then adds the row to it. So 2 times 4 is 8, plus the 3 is 11. And so that means essentially change index 11 of this, starting from here. So that's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Change that to value, whatever we've put in. So essentially our matrix has been changed to that. And then the maths that happens with rotate does it. Now changing this essentially means make something that's closer to us bigger, and something that's further away smaller. And that's what's happening when we click this. The edge, as it rotates over the animation, the edge nearest us becomes bigger, while the edge furthest away becomes smaller. And you might think, well, actually the edge there isn't becoming smaller, but don't forget we've chopped that in half. The full animation is spinning around the middle. There is a bottom part which is going away and looking smaller, it's just we can't see it. And then the center is going to remain the same size. Okay. just a quick explanation of what that is. Okay, so we've got the A coming down. That's good. We need to now do something about the bottom tile. And in fact, we're going to do pretty much the same thing. So I'm just going to copy this whole transform and paste it in here and change the top tile here to the bottom tile as it was. And of course, we're now going to be aligning around the top center. And we want, instead of this animation value, like so, we want the negative version of it. So let's just put in a minus in front of it. Now when we run our thing, we've got this folding up together. Okay, why is that happening? Well, there's actually two stages to this transformation. The first stage is when the top part flips down, and then the second stage is when it covers up the bottom. And so we need to split this up like that. Okay, so let's go up to the top in our animation controller and create a boolean called second stage. And by default, that's false. Okay. So in our transformation, what we have in our rotation is we're going to say, are we in the second stage of this transformation? If we are in the second stage, then pi divided by 2 is going to be our value. Otherwise, our animation value is going to be as we've got it. And don't forget, pi divided by 2 is the end point of our animation. So what we're saying here is once we're in the second stage, leave our animation value at the end point. And then for the bottom part, we're going to say, are we in the second stage? If so, then we want to animate it. Otherwise, we want it to be pi divided by 2. Okay. So where do we change this second stage from? Well, if we come up to our animation controller where we've got our adding our listener, let's add in here a status listener where we get a status. And we can say here, if status equals animation status dot completed, i.e. have we got to the end of the animation, well, we're going to set the second stage there to true, and then we're going to reverse the controller. So we're going to go backwards. Excellent. So let's save that and hit play. And when we hit play, we're also going to want to make sure we set our second stage to false. It needs to be false to begin with. Okay, we need to restart because we need to reinitialize all of that. Let's play there. And there we have our flip. Okay. So that's sort of working. But what's not working is the fact that we're now missing half of our tile. We have the tile that's flipping, but we need another tile. And that's because when we flip, we're flipping from one to another. So let's take our tile there and hitting F2. I'm going to change this to tile A. I'm then going to copy that, paste it below as tile B, which is our second tile, and I'm going to change that to B. Okay, so we've got two tiles. So coming down here, we need to stack our two tiles. So let's take our transform and wrap it in a stack. Haven't got that as a shortcut, so I'm just going to wrap it in a column and change column to stack straight away. And in that, I'm then going to add in a top tile, but I want tile B to be the top tile. So how do we do that? If I just put top tile in like so, we have our A in, but it's not going to go from A to A, it's going to go from A to B. So we need to change our top tile to be a function. So let's take out the final, and in it we're going to put in a widget, which is going to be the child, and this is going to return a clip rectangle with the child that we specified. So coming down here, initially our initial one is our tile A, and then we're going to tile B. So now let's play that, and we can see that our A at the top flips down, revealing the B behind it. Okay, so that's our top tile. We need to do the same for the bottom tile. So bottom tile is going to take a widget, which is a child, and is going to return with the child there. So it's going to be transforming into tile B, like so. And again, this is going to be a stack. So wrap it with a column, change it to stack, and we're going to add in to that, oops, this needs to be a bottom tile, tile B. Yeah, and we're going to add into this a bottom tile, tile A. I think we got that the right way around. So let's play that now, and yeah, we correctly go from A to B when we hit our play button. Okay, that's great and all, but we want to be able to go to any letter, not just between A and B. And so we need to put in some code to deal with that. So let's come up here to our state again and add in a few more things that we need to go. First of all, we need to know what our target letter is, and we need to know what our current letter is. Now, quickest or the best way I think of doing this is by using ASCII character values. And if you're not familiar with ASCII character values, we're basically changing the letters to be numeric value. So we're just going to deal with capital letters. Capital letter A has the ASCII value of 65, and Z, capital letter Z, is 90. Okay, so with that in mind, I'll just bring up on screen here a quick table just so you can see. What we're going to do is in our code, we're going to set our target letter to be a value. Let's just put 70 in there. And we want our current letter also to be a value, so 65. Okay, so we're currently at A and we want to go to F. So within our list now, we've got this status here, if animation is completed, but we've got another status, and we can say if, we've already got if status equals animation status dismissed, and that is called when our animation has gone forward and finished, it's completed, but when it comes back and finished, that is dismissed. Okay, We then need to check to see whether our current letter is equal to our target letter. So if our current letter does not equal our target letter, in fact let's rename that to letters so we know what we're doing, target letter. If that's the case, controller, we're going to go forward again. Now this is just going to go in a loop because we're not changing our current letter. So we need some way of figuring out what the next letter is. Well, the next letter in most cases is going to be the current letter plus 1. But what happens when we get to Z, 90, we can't have the current letter as 91. The next letter is 91 because we'll just go off into bizarre letters and characters and punctuation, and we're only dealing with A to Z in this. So I'm going to create a getter up here. Get, which I'm going to call next letter. And that's going to return something based on the current letter. If the current letter is greater than or equal to 90, then I'm going to return 65. We go back to A. Otherwise, we're going to return current letter plus 1. Okay, so every time we call or get the next letter, if the current letter is, essentially it should never be greater than, but I've put that in for belts and braces, but if it is 90, then we're going to return 65 as the next letter. Otherwise, we're going to return the current letter plus 1. So here we can say the current letter, once it's dismissed, the current letter equals the next letter. We also want to set our second stage at this point back to false. Okay, and that should run through for us. But that doesn't help because our letters are still here, A and B. So we need to pass into here, we need to change A and B tile to be a function. So let's change tile A, and we'll set this to take in a character code and return, and we need to turn that character code into a string, and we can do that very easily by using string from character code and pass in the character code like so. I'm going to leave it as tile A and B. Actually, we could merge this into one function. We don't need these two separate functions, but I think from a sanity point of view of looking and working out what's going on, we'll just keep it as 2 for now. It is slightly redundant, but it is what it is. Okay, so coming down to our tile at the bottom, so tile B is going to be our next letter, and tile A is going to be our current letter. Tile A is current letter, tile B is next letter. And this is what I mean by we don't need those. We don't need a tile A and a tile B. We could just call it tile and tile. But I think just from a confusion point of view, I'm not going to change that just at the moment. Okay, so let's save that, and I'm actually going to put in here, within our init state, I'm actually going to start the animation running immediately. So controller dot forward. So we don't need the play button anymore. So let's save that and reload. And there we go. We now have our animation flipping to the letter we set and then stopping when it gets to the end. Perfect. I think now is probably a good time to increase the speed of our animation as well. So I'm going to just for now, I'm going to go with milliseconds. Let's go with 200. And that'll just speed that up for now. Do another refresh. There we go. All right, so that's one letter. What about if we want to have a row of letters? Okay, so we need to do some refactoring here in order to accomplish that. So I'm going to rename my home to my tile. Yep, so I'm going to click on it, F2, my tile, because this is now going to be a standalone tile. And within this, we no longer need the app bar. That needs to come out. And the scaffold needs to come out. So we're just going to return the column. So the scaffold and the center are coming out. So let's get rid of the center first of all. And then I don't think we can get rid of the scaffold like that. No, we can't. So we'll just have to remove it and return the column, and then come to the bottom and fix the bottom like so. Okay, so that's sort of broken our app. That's fine. Let's come up here now and create a new stateless widget, which we will call my home. This will have the scaffold, and this will have the body of child, sorry, of a center, and the child will be my tile for now. Okay, save that, hard restart, and oh, just let's change this to my home as well, so we're loading the right backup. Okay, the right widget up. So instead of having just a single tile, we now want to have a row of tiles. But before we do that, actually, we want to be able to pass into the tile what letter we want it to be. Okay, so within my tile, we're going to need to pass in a string, which is our target letter. I don't want to have to pass in character codes. I want to be able to pass in a string and let the tile figure it out from there. So final string target target character. Okay, and that's going to be a required thing. So this dot target character. So in our controller then, in our state, sorry, we need to take that target and figure out what to do with it. And we can do that. We can say the target letter is going to equal the widget dot target character. I'm going to change it to uppercase because we're only dealing with uppercase here. So I'm going to allow it to change to uppercase, and then we're going to get the code unit at index 0, and that's the character code. The reason why we have to use code index at is, let's say we passed in a string like that. Well, this is the index 0, so we're going to get the code at that. That's index 1, 2, and 3. So that basically means the first character, the code of the first character. Okay, so the target letter now equals the code of the first character. So we can now change that. Let's put in Z there. And when we save that and refresh, we should have now our flipboard going all the way to Z, which it looks like it's doing perfectly. Excellent. So now we can do that. We can create a row of children, but I want this to be a little bit more flexible. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create another stateless widget called tile row, and this is going to have a string of text. So final string text. Okay, and this is going to that's going to be required, so let's put that in. This text, perfect. And this is going to return a row of children. Now, a row of children is going to be a row of my tiles. It's going to be like this. Okay, but we don't really know what letters are. We need to work that out programmatically. So in here we can say final tiles equals the text that we've submitted. For each character we're going to map that character, and we're going to map that character to a my tile with the character, and then we're going to convert all of that to a list. And instead of having a constant there, we're just going to then pass in the tiles. Okay, so for the row, we're going to have a row. So now up here, we can change our child to be a tile row of hello. Let's save that, and there we have it. Okay, a few things to do there. First of all, in this row, let's change the alignment. Change the alignment of that to main axis alignment center. So I'm going to center the row. That's better, and I think we also need a little bit of space around each tile. So we can do that in our tile itself, where we return the column. Let's just wrap that with some padding, and let's just have a very small amount of padding all the way around. Let's do 1. Yeah, I think that's fine, and that will give us space. Okay. Now, let's change this word. Flutter. And refresh. Okay, so that's sticking off a little bit. We've got a bit of an overrun. There's a few ways of dealing with that. For now, I'm just going to go with the simplest solution and say that that's the maximum that we're going to allow. I'm just going to reduce the size of the boxes. We could put it into a scale, or we could do all sorts of things to try and fit it, but I want to keep this straightforward. So I'm reducing the width of our containers to 55 and the font size down to 50, and that will just fit on. Okay. Now, this doesn't look very natural going in like that. I think what we want is, when the tiles start, I think we want to have a random character assigned. So I'm going to come to the bottom, and I'm just going to create a couple of little helper functions. First one, rand between, which will take the minimum and the maximum, and it will return a random number for us. Okay, let's go final random equals random. Okay, so we're going to have minimum number plus random next int max minus min, and that will return a number that includes the minimum number, but it is includes the minimum number but is below the maximum number. So our second helper function is going to be random uppercase character, and that's going to return a rand between to us between 65, so the minimum is inclusive, and Z, which is 90, but it's exclusive. We want to include it, so we're just going to go one above. Okay, so that will return a number that's in between or including 65 to 90. Okay. So let's go up to the top, and I'm going to set the current letter to 64, which is below our range. But that 64 happens to be the @ symbol. It's fine. And then in here, we're going to write a little bit of code, and we're going to say the current letter equals the target letter, or the current letter equals 64. Then current letter equals random uppercase car. So we set our target letter to whatever's been put in, and then we say, does the current letter equal the target letter, or does the current letter equal 64? In which case, generate us a new random letter. It's going to keep doing that. So essentially, it's going to do that the first time because it's definitely 64 the first time. And it's also going to get another random letter if the target letter happens to randomly equal the current letter. So it's not going to pick the target letter as the random current letter. It's going to do that and then play. So let's save that and refresh. And that should give us a more natural looking board. Okay. I think now is the time to increase our milliseconds as well. Let's go with 80. And then if we want more rows, well, we simply wrap that with a column. Take out the comps there and put in whichever rows you want with whatever text you want. Need to just main access size minimum, just to center it. And there we go. There is our display board. Okay, hope you've had fun, hope you've enjoyed and learned something. If you have, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, it does help me out. And we'll see you next time with Flutter with Drag. Take care, folks. Bye now.